Good morning.
Good morning. You got your mic on?
Good morning.
The speaker is not working today.
Well, we
It
better
was
go then.
working. I did a couple voice checks, and then some engineer turned it on and
Zingo.
Is the speaker the same as the presenter? Not working?
the presenter has other issues. Okay. So I've got a cough drop lozenge. I will make an attempt to speak more clearly and loudly than my usual mumble. Okay, and I'm counting on the folks in the back. Peter, if you can't hear me, start doing the, okay, and then I'll go to up the volume as much as I can. Okay. I'm going to wait for John to take a seat. Yeah, I'm just embarrassed. Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Welcome to meeting number 272 of TMG Dayton, the Mac. And it's our first meeting after our summer break. And I'm hoping everybody had a good summer. I got to see my one and only granddaughter. She came to visit for a week. I'm still picking up toys. Seriously, I'm still picking everywhere I go. There's stuff that she's got. Okay. So for those of you who wish to be logged in to the Wi-Fi here, that is the wireless you're looking for, and that's the password for it. Okay, so I'll leave that up. And let me get my other window up here. So I've got our agenda up in front of us. Okay. And that works a little bit better if we've got the agenda up. Mike, do we have anybody who's outstanding that's here today that needs to see you about membership stuff?
Oh, you were the only one. I'm not.
So basically, we're good to go. We don't have any visitors. Okay. So we don't have to do the welcome. But good morning to you anyway. All right. News items. I don't have to walk through the agenda. If you're all current members, you know how we do this. Okay. News items. How many of you still use Microsoft Office 2011? Okay. How many of you still use Microsoft Office 2008? 2004? Office 98? Yeah.
Got them all.
Okay. Just something to be aware of. If you end up with newer equipment and you end up with the brand new operating system that's coming out real soon called High Sierra, Office 2011 will not work with it.
How about 2008? Will it work?
211 or
No,
Oh, 211 or lower will not work.
correct. You got to go to Office 2016 or Office 365, or what I've done, I've switched to an open source Office suite called LibreOffice. LibreOffice. Yes?
Will LibreOffice still support the Excel and its basic language in that?
Okay. What I prefer LibreOffice because I work with a lot of people that are using PCs who don't want to have to deal with all of the whiz-bangs that they put in the newer versions of Office. And LibreOffice handles all that stuff on the PC side very, very nicely. On the Mac side, it's got sort of an antique interface compared to what we're used to on the Mac side. But again, it does a very nice job. And that's LibreOffice, L-I-B-R-E, and then Office. Okay. The other thing that I like about LibreOffice is that it also has a drawing module. Now, I got spoiled back in the days of Apple Works.
Yeah, me
Okay.
too.
And then, of course, later on, Apple Works on the Mac. And I'm talking about Apple Works on the Apple II GS. The Apple GS, Apple II. Okay. So, LibreOffice, the way it works is, think of like Microsoft Works, where you have one program, you turn it on, and then you tell it, do I want to do a spreadsheet? Do I want to do a text document, a Word document? Do I want to do a presentation? Do I want to do some sort of drawing program? Or do I want to do a database? Because that's the one thing Microsoft never gave us over on the Mac side, which is a Mac version of Microsoft Access. The kicker, though, is almost everybody else in the world is when you send them a file, if it's not a Microsoft Office file, they go, what is this? Because they don't know how to, and that's fine. So what I do is, as soon as I've installed LibreOffice, I then go into the various settings and I tell it, when you save a document, do not save it in the ODF format, the open document formats. Save a spreadsheet as if it was an Excel spreadsheet. Save a text document as if it was from Microsoft Word. So it's a DOC or DOCX document. Save a presentation as a PowerPoint format. Save drawing databases as Access. And I find that everything works from that point on. So, it opens Access documents, saves it as an Access document. Opens Excel documents, save it as an Excel. That's LibreOffice. The other alternatives are NeoOffice and Apache OpenOffice. Okay, those are the other two. LibreOffice, it's got a little bit nicer interface, I think.
That's open source.
Open source, it's what is called FOSS, Free Open Source Software. Yeah.
If you don't want to go with any of those routes and you want to get the newer version of Mac, Office for Mac,
Then you have to make a choice. Do you want to, for example, do you want the smaller version, what they call the home and student version?
right,
Okay. Or do you want the one that's more of a business one where you also get Outlook? Okay. And then the other choice then is, do you want to pay once and have it, or do you want to be on the subscription? Now, in the case of Microsoft Office, Microsoft 365, when you buy a subscription, you can put that onto 5 machines, Mac and or PC. And you get all of the updates, etc., and it's like somewhere between $69 and $99, depending on where you find coupons. That's not a bad deal, actually.
well, what is it for buy it once? Forget it.
It's about 175, 180 if you just want to buy the suite.
Right.
Yeah.
And you don't have,
149.
149.
then you don't have to buy it every year, that silly 365 thing.
But you also don't get updated every
Right.
year. So,
Yeah.
as with many things from Microsoft,
That isn't bad,
you're not quite sure, they say you can, yeah. The way they want us to go is the subscription route,
Sure.
okay? And they want to be able to count how many seats of this stuff is installed. Okay. So if I was running a small business and I had a handful of machines in the office, I'd go that $99 a year, put it on 5 machines. I don't have to worry about, did I pick up the right box? Did I get the Mac version? Did I get the PC version? So anyway, I will let you figure out the math and the best choice there. Other things that are going on. Chris and Dave Morgan, the Morgans, they sent me a very nice email asking me to tell you that they're not going to be coming to the meetings anymore. They're relocating to North Carolina. Some
Tell
of
them to
Dave's...
drive up.
Hmm?
Tell them to drive up on Saturday.
No, they're relocating so that they can be closer to family. Dave's getting some more dementia issues. They wanted to relocate now so that he can become familiar to the new area. But they sent a very nice email. Oh, they said lovely things about you people. I just made me want to come to a meeting after I read it. Anyway, but they really were very, very appreciative and grateful for the friendship and compassion and what was the other one? Consideration that you've given them in these meetings. Okay, so I don't know what you folks are doing. Obviously, I haven't been paying attention. Okay. Another item coming up in terms of news, the Apple's got this event coming up September 12th. It just happens to be the 10th anniversary of the release of the iPhone. So I have a feeling they may be doing something a little bit more than just announcing a new iPhone. I went through the various mass media sites that do computer stuff, just to see what they were thinking was going to come out. So their guest list is a new iPhone, a new version of the Apple Watch. They thought that might be what's going to be rolled out. Apple has said that the next watch that they release is going to have its own cellular connection in it. Yeah. So think about what happened with the original iPad. The original iPad, you had to cable it to your computer to put data on, take data off, and then later on they put a newer operating system on it and it could do Wi-Fi, so it didn't have to be tethered to the computer anymore. And then later on they came out with the iPads that also had cell technology built into it, so that you could be walking around, you couldn't make a phone call with it, but you could be, channeling the internet off of a cell phone network, and it became an independent device. The Apple Watches in the past, you had to have an iPhone for it to be fully functional. In other words, the watch would talk to the iPhone that would do the various stuff. I think we're like this close to the Dick Tracy watch, where it's going to do the whole thing by itself. You won't have to,
TV on it.
We're getting close.
How big is the dial?
How big is
The dial? How big is the battery?
Voice actuated, This is Dick Tracy. Calling so-and-so, calling all cars. Some of the other things that they thought might be showing up, now, again, this is all just, smoke and mirrors, and I'm doing the fan dance. A new HomePod. A newer Apple TV that could do the 4K resolution. Announcing the iMac Pro you'd actually be able to buy it other than just that. Possibly a new Mac Pro where you can actually put cards in it and swap stuff in and out. Something that some of us that like to do unusual things with our computer equipment. We like the ability to put our own video cards in and swap out the hard drives and that sort of stuff. The AR kit, which would be your artificial reality kit. And then maybe they'll actually give us the date that they're releasing High Sierra, which is the new operating system. So basically, the mass media is doing its typical, we don't really know what Apple's going to do, but we'll make you think we're all seeing and knowing we actually know what they're going to do. So anyway, September 12th, we'll see what they announce
Bill?
then. Yes?
One thing I read, it may not be an iPhone 8. Its liable to be the iPhone X.
iPhone X? iPhone
Because
X.
it's the 10th anniversary.
Sounds
Okay.
like
But
I
that's
thought-
speculation.
Not triple X, just X, right?
that ain't a big deal.
Um,
That's a big deal.
Another little news item, how many of you have a credit card? Okay.
Who doesn't?
As you know, you have there are all these credit rating services. Okay. And me, I'm a Fair Isaacs guy. That's the formula, and it uses an amalgamation of the three major credit bureaus to figure out. Okay. Anyway, Equifax, which is sort of, they're not even they're not the Hertz of the credit card bureaus. They're not the Avis of the credit card bureaus. They're sort of like the guy that's got a car that'll rent you. Okay, in terms of how they do stuff, especially in terms of their consumer interaction, how they treat you. They had a minor security. Minor. So they're not sure how many, they know that someone had access to at least 140 million Americans' credit card ratings on their servers. At least 140. They may have had access to everybody they had, which would be, about 280 million,
Oh,
300
crying
million.
out loud.
Because you got company ratings that are in there too.
Is there anything safe?
And they think the breach occurred somewhere between March and June of this year, and they didn't really figure it out that they had been breached until like August.
Hey, Bill,
So, yeah.
with that, my son-in-law did some research on that. There is a website, which I don't know what it is, but you can actually go and see if your actual data was compromised.
Yeah.
But if you do that, because we don't normally read the user agreement,
Yeah.
if you sign up to do that, you waive your right to be in a class action lawsuit against them.
Yeah.
Huh. If you check on, you're in trouble.
Now, and I just want to add another little fillip to that. The first, I was on a Windows 7 PC and I was using Internet Explorer, and yeah, I know that's bad for a whole bunch of different reasons. And I just did a search for it, and I figured I'd see what the site was like. And I discovered there's about 4 or 5 phony websites out there, and this was a couple days ago, there's probably several of them out there now, that looked like the real thing, but they weren't. So if you're going to do this, do it on a secure browser, Safari, Google, Firefox, Edge, from a modern operating system, because they'll tell you whether it's a real or not real, because they'll do the VeriSign secure lock. But I didn't know about that, Mike. Thank you.
Yeah,
I thought it's Equifax. They were being too accommodating. I figured there had to be some reason they were.
yeah, that's what he said. He said if you sign up to find out if your information has
Yeah.
actually been breached,
I think
you're actually waiving.
I'm not sure, that may be correct, but I thought it was that you could actually check and see if whether or not if your card was involved, but the only time you forfeited your option to accept for a class action suit was if you agreed to the terms of them providing you with 1 year of free credit checks.
Okay.
If they did that, then you in turn were giving away your class action rights.
So, with all that said, this is why I come to the meetings, because I learn this stuff. What I would suggest everybody do is go to the Clark Howard website.
Yeah.
Okay, Clark Howard.
.com.
He's a radio guy. He does a consumer reports, protection, how to live a cheap life kind of radio show. And he's a very nice guy. I like Clark. He's a very nice guy. I always liked him when he'd be visiting. He'd be in town, he'd visit the newspaper. And he always has highly accurate information. And what I really love about the guy is that when he says something that's not quite correct, it's like he raises his hands, he says, my fault, mea culpa, and here's what I said that wasn't quite correct or whatever. So, like, even if he doesn't get it 100% that first time, within a week or so, his staff and him, boom, they got all this stuff nailed down. So I would just, in terms of the Equifax breach, just be aware that that's happened, and that you might want to see what other ways you can secure your, transaction. I'm trying to remember the other one, where you can see all 3 of the credit union reports for free. Anyway, doesn't matter. Clark Howard's website, they'll give you good information.
ClarkHoward.com or what?
Yeah.
Clark.com. It's just one sign up for it.
Clark.com.
Let me bring bring up a web browser real quick.
They're saying don't sign up for it, that's temporary.
CLARK
I,
Howard.
Me either. I won't use it until they force me to.
Okay.
There you go.
What is it, just Clark?
Zooming in.
Clark Howard.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
Clark Howard.
That's it.
Clark.com.
Clark.com.
Yeah.
How in the world did he get such a short one?
I'm sure he paid big bucks. And he's got, oh, if
He
you're
was the
into
first
deals,
tourist.
this guy.
Yeah.
Okay, just, if you're somebody who travels, it's like the man's wired into every deal that anybody ever had if you travel. Like just, if you're traveling, boom. This is the guy that down in Atlanta, because they're based out of Atlanta, WSB Atlanta, when my other friend Bortz was still working full-time down there, Bortz would sneak up behind Clark, because Clark would ride one of these little boop-boop, little Italian velocipeders. And Bortz had his Prius, all electric, real quiet, and he'd sneak up behind Clark. And he would have set the trap. He would have put a nickel down on the pavement by the gate, where, the gate for the parking lot, okay, knowing that Clark Howard would stop and reach for that, and Bortz would wait for him. He was just reaching, and he'd hit that horn. This is why, even though...
Is that why we don't hear anything from Bortz anymore? Was there a hit out on him or something?
I get all of my Bortz reports from Jeff Bruce's wife, Sandy Bruce. Jeff Bruce used to be a managing editor of the Dayton Daily News. He also headed up other Cox newspapers out in Arizona. They relocated to Florida.
Naples.
Yeah, Naples, Florida. And Sandy sells real estate down there. Okay. Now that's also where Neil is located. Okay, Neil Bortz. And so, every so often when I interact with Sandy, I'll say, is Bortz still driving past, your open houses with that buses? So anyway, it can be a very lovely community down in Naples, Florida. Sandy doesn't think that Neil is much of a selling point.
Until tomorrow.
So she encourages Neil's wife to take him out on those long trips with her, either the airplane that he's got or his big RV.
Someone got something off the internet that they might be separated.
Oh, I didn't hear
But
that.
no, I haven't verified that, but
Okay,
something she found on there as though something's happened in their marriage.
okay.
And I think we're getting off the subject.
Yeah, we're getting off the subject. Let's get back to
The
computers.
important thing about
Okay,
Bortz,
so
he wrote the Fair Titles book
Which married couple?
along with a congressman.
No.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Bortz.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
If
that'll
anybody
tell.
wants one, I'll give you one.
Okay, so that'll basically tell you what sort of person Neil Bortz is. He's got his wash basin on his head, he's got his jousting lance, and he's on the Charger going at that windmill, full speed, so. Plus, the man cannot stand a quiet, calm room. You'll have a group of people get together. I've seen this happen 4 or 5 times. It'll be a book signing, a perfectly calm, quiet crowd. Bortz shows up, and all of a sudden people are screaming and yelling at each other, and they're talking about things like what the tax system should be, or immigration, or just name the hot. The man's a pot stirrer. I'll just put it that way. Okay. So don't invite him to any family weddings. Okay. Other than that, I don't have any other news items. Does anybody else have anything local they want to share? Has anybody been down to Experiment lately? Got anything fixed down there? Nope. Anybody? Oh,
I've got a Mac Mini in there right now. That
Okay.
had kind of it'd like to reboot a lot. And,
Okay.
And you would put it to sleep, and sometimes it would power back up.
okay.
Power off and power back up.
Okay.
it kept crashing, and it took them a while to figure it out, but then it's power supply.
Okay,
So that's still in progress.
okay. And then we have DNA, which is over in Kettering near Christopher's Restaurant. I know people that are sending stuff to them, they're getting good results. We've got Micro Center down on Mostella Road. I know people that send older stuff to them, they get good results. Then there's the other one, help me out here, they're up at the Green.
Apple Store.
No, not the Apple Store. It's like,
Not far from there, though.
It's owned by AT&T.
it's like Blue Lake. Anyway, but I know some people who, were former photographers at Dayton News, took a whole bunch of equipment up to those folks that are up in the Green Crossing and that, and had good results up there. So I'm hearing good things about all 4 of the non-Apple repair places in town. But,
Gem-
you know,
Gem
if you
City.
can give me any more, I appreciate that.
Gem City.
Gem City, thank you, Gem City.
Is that the one in the green?
They're up, Gem City, they're up in the, up in the green.
G-E.
Yeah, GEM. Because Dayton is supposed to be the Gem City. I don't know why it's supposed to be the Gem City. It's like, I've never found diamonds, you know. Okay. So anybody else going once, going twice? Yes,
Just
Ken?
one statement, one question. Some of us have been having trouble with Yahoo and the email issue with the and online. They cut me off and I can't even send an email. And wanting a new password. We want to continue. Can you comment on that?
Okay, so this is Yahoo?
Yeah,
Okay, and their email?
yeah.
Okay. Okay, so the first thing to understand is that Yahoo had that tremendously large security breach, and they didn't do the disclosure about it in a forthright manner, which meant that the people who are trying to buy them, which I think is Vodafone. Anyway, there's a company that's trying to buy Yahoo. They dropped their price significantly after they did find out about it. So the folks at Yahoo, their IT people, they went, okay, we got all these old email accounts. We need to up security on these things. We need to start limiting what sort of things you can do. So for example, let's say you've got a Windows 10 box and you want to use the Windows Mail app to do Yahoo Mail. And you go through all the, you know, click all the buttons, hit all the buttons, jump through the flaming hoops, and it still doesn't work. Because you've got to log into Yahoo with a web browser and change your mail settings using the web browser to say that it's allowed to use an insecure email client like like Microsoft Mail. So that's been a whole bunch of the things that I've seen that people have gotten on a PC side, that they don't know that there's all these magic buttons they got to click. Plus there's privacy settings that you have to turn off to get SIMs to work. On top of that, Yahoo is trying to shed a lot of those free email accounts. They want to go where you're paying for the email or you're loaded up with lots and lots of ads. So when you're trying to connect to your Yahoo email account, how are you doing it? Are you doing it through a web browser or are you doing it through a mail program?
I believe it's a web browser.
Web browser, okay. So the next thing would be, which web browser are you using?
Okay.
Okay, so what you might want to try is try a different web browser and see if that one will let you in. Because the thing that keeps biting me, because I work on old machines so much, you know, I was just working on a GS the other day, an Apple GS. Yeah. They couldn't get their Mockingbird to work correctly. And they explained they didn't need it because it had a sound chip already in it. Anyway, it's neither here nor there. But what happens is you're on an older machine, and let's say you're running Snow Leopard, okay, Mac OS 10.6, and you're just happy as can be, and all your games work, and everything you want to do works, but you can't update your web browsers anymore. They've cut you off. You are no longer supported. and you're trying to do Yahoo Mail. Yahoo Mail wants to do some stuff with only the modern web browsers. So then you're at the point of, okay, it wasn't just a password deal. It was that my web browser wasn't new enough to be able to interact with Yahoo. Okay. So am I sort of helping here, giving you some of the other possibilities that are involved?
This is what happens. They keep wanting me to update my password. I can get into Yahoo because I ignore it. But when they keep telling me, go to system preferences, which I do,
Yeah.
I go to network settings, and I call up Yahoo,
Yeah.
and then I say, then I'm waiting for my password page to come up.
Yep.
And instead I get connection insecure, failed to verify server certificate. This could be because of your network configuration or your proxy settings. So I
Okay.
ignore it, and I can still get on Yahoo.
Oh, and you can still
Oh,
get
yeah,
in.
yeah.
If
But,
you
so
ignore
I
it.
think it has to do with iCloud somehow, but I don't know. But they just, every morning
Okay.
when I boot up, I get this, please sign into Yahoo.
Okay.
So I ignore it.
So this is another whole thing that can screw stuff up, and that is the website that you're trying to connect to, do they have their security certificates, their RSAs, there's a whole bunch of VeriSign, there's a whole bunch of different certificates that are out there. Do they have theirs up to date? In other words, have they paid the money to VeriSign? And did they deploy those up-to-date certificates to all their web servers? Usually not. Okay. So how I get around that sort of thing is when that comes up, I go into show me the certificate, and then I look at it, and you can usually tell, are they out by a little bit, or like, is this a 2013 certificate, what is it? And I'll just say, trust it anyway. And then I can go ahead and do the various things.
Thank you.
Okay. The other thing to keep in mind is that sometimes they'll tell you there's a password problem when there isn't a password problem. They've got, the example would be Apple ID. You're trying to log into iTunes Store or the App Store, or you're trying to do your Apple Mail, and it says there's a password problem, and they want you to look at your stuff on the thing. And when you get there, they're saying, oh, we have new privacy, new, end user licensing agreement, and they want you to read it and sign on that, and that's what they were actually doing.
Thank you.
Okay. So can you sense the aggravation and frustration in my
Yeah.
voice? Okay. So, with that said, Ken, at least you got some paths to follow now. Okay. All right, great.
You can do
I
a
think
show
we
of
segged into help desk.
Yeah.
Okay.
I got a
But before we
couple
do
things.
that, we've got some printer cartridges that are on the table over there. The person's printer died, the cartridges are still good. If you have that kind of printer, I think it's let's see.
It was an HP, the code number is 564.
Yeah.
And they're all
Anyway.
Excel.
So he's got them identified there. So of
One
course
of them's
you
brand
all
new, it's
have
not even out of the
memorized
wrap.
what your printers are and what cartridges they use. So anyway, if you're interested in that. Anybody else have anything else, freebies that stuff they were looking for? Because then we'll switch into help desk. Someone's gonna press- Okay.
I got stuff for sale, that's.
Oh, okay, what do you got for sale?
I've got it's about a 5-year-old Olympus point and shoot 12 megapixel camera. Comes with a 4 gig SD card. Looking for $40, but make me an offer. And then on the cheaper side, I've upgraded my pad, so my old case, $10. You're looking for a nice pad for a 9-inch iMac or iPad.
Okay, anything else? How about the glasses on the table, the folder, napkin,
No.
McDonald's cup?
Yeah.
Collectible?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, anybody else? Going once, going twice. Okay, and I wasn't making fun, okay, because this is an important, you're doing the stuff I want people to do. If you've got equipment that you no longer need or want, you can find another use for it before we recycle it, you bring it on in, try and sell it, et cetera, et cetera. that Olympus camera is probably a good buy at that price. Okay, so now we're full-blown into help desk. Okay, Ray.
Okay, there are a couple things should be quick answers. One, I'm having trouble with my computer. Apple Engineering is working on it, but all my icons on the desktop where I've saved things, if I turn my computer off and back on, and I blink after they come up, they disappear because they're all hidden. They're trying to find out why. But with tech support yesterday, they had Command, Shift, and the period would bring them out, would show the hidden files. Now I quit doing it. So am I doing that right, and should I call them back?
Okay. So these are files that don't have any sort of special security on them. You're not using some program to hide stuff. Okay. So this is just icons, things that are on your desktop, and they should be showing up, and they're not necessarily showing up, or they show up and then they disappear.
Wait a minute.
Yep.
As long as you don't turn the computer off, they stay.
Okay.
Turn it off, reboot it, they're there for a moment, and go away. But anything you have new stays until you turn your computer off. It's weird. They're working on that part. I'm only asking, is Command, Shift, period, the way to see hidden files?
No. What it's doing is it's telling the computer to update a .ds file, which has, think of it as, okay, the files on your desktop, pretend they're books in a library, okay? The .ds file is like the card catalog that says what's on the desktop, okay? And what's allowed to be seen and what isn't allowed to be seen. Because there are files on your desktop, files on your computer that are hidden.
Right.
Okay. They're there, but they're hidden.
That's
Okay.
exactly the situation.
Okay. So that's all that it's really doing. It's forcing the computer to refresh that and then display them to you. Okay. So when I see these sorts of issues on a hard drive, on a device, a computer, that says to me that there's something not quite right with the filing system. Okay, it's not keeping track of stuff well. So the first thing I do is back up, back up, back up, back up. Okay, because I know if I don't back it up, this is like somebody else's computer, like you brought it to me. Okay, I know if I don't back it up and I do anything, it'll blow off, smoke, flames, crashing airplanes, be bad. Okay, so back up first. Now, if you have a time machine, super duper, or carbon copy cloner backup of this computer?
Time machine.
Okay, good. Okay, and the time machine hard drive that's backed up on is not the computer's hard drive, right?
No.
Okay, very good. The next thing I would do is I would then wipe and reformat that hard drive, reinstall the operating system on it, and then from Time Machine bring back in the data.
I think if I had minimum wage, for every hour I spent with tech support, I could buy everybody in this room a great dinner. But my question is, how do I see the hidden files? And they were telling, and it was working, Command, Shift, period, how you do that, and they'd all appear on the desktop until the next time I turned it off.
Because it's a workaround, it's not a fix.
But why doesn't it work, is my question. It worked yesterday, it's not working today.
Okay. All right. Excluding the possibility of fumble fingers. I can't tell you how many times I was certain I had my fingers on the Command, Option, and P and R keys, and I didn't. Okay. So excluding that one, operator error. It could be that whatever is degrading your filing system has gotten to the point where that rebuild doesn't work anymore.
Well, we've sent 2 copies of everything off to engineering, and we've got it partially fixed, but not all the way. But I've got so many files that I saved to work on the newsletter, and now I can't.
So, here's the dilemma that I face daily. I'm a puzzle solver. I love puzzles, but if I really spend all the time necessary to figure out why something isn't working, and I go in and I do that pinpoint, boom, fix, it might take a couple weeks. They may not get their computer back for, it's like, hey, next year, okay? Because you're trying to figure out exactly. So you go, I want to solve the puzzle, but on the other hand, what's the real goal here? The real goal is to get that computer back in that person's hand with their data where it's not doing whatever it was doing before. Okay, the bad stuff. It's supposed to do the good stuff it was doing before. So from that sort of perspective, I appreciate that you want to work with Apple and all that, but me, I would have just said, hey, the second or third time it did, I would have said, oh, okay, Fuji hard drive, let's run some diagnostics on it. Back up first. Run some diagnostics on the hard drive. Is that okay? What's going on there? And if it's a good hard drive and it's just acting a little flaky, wipe it, reinstall everything. It takes about 2.5 hours. If you do it right, boom, we're done and we're good for another couple months or years.
Well, the last thing, how many people in the room use a little stylus on their iPads or even their phones? And after a while, it drags so much that it can barely do anything for you. Do we have any? I can't look back behind me.
I'm getting like no response at all. People are going like, what's an iPad? Anyway,
if you need to restore one, put a little bit of, I use a little tiny pill bottle and I put some talcum powder in it. And you just dip it in there and it's just as smooth and great on that screen again.
Okay. We're talking about the little spongy tips on the back of
little rubber tip.
Okay.
Sometimes there's a pen at the other end.
Now,
sometimes
are you using Johnson & Johnson's baking powder?
Yeah.
The one where they, supposedly it's linked to cancer risks among children in the diapers.
Well, after you use it a while, your iPad smells like a nursery.
That's really a bad thing. It could smell worse. Okay. Anyway, so that was a good thing to share, though. So if you got a stylus and it's just not, okay, like Brad Norman's got right there, and it's just not doing it, try a little bit of
Talcum powder.
Talcum powder.
Yeah.
Okay, not baking powder, talcum powder.
Talcum, yeah.
But my go-to is baking soda. I use that for baking powder. I use it. Sodium bicarbonate. I use that to clean drains, scour things. I'm going to go to Ron, and then I'll go to George.
Mine's mainly a question. It used to be the fix for things was you'd go to disk utilities and verify and reset permissions. My current operating system, when I go to disk utilities, doesn't have that. Where did they hide it?
They took it away
Old version.
because they decided that the typical Apple consumer today
Was incapable of doing such
really doesn't need to be doing that sort of stuff. Okay. So with me, that's part of my standard litany. It's sort of like, I'm thinking of like almost like a catechism you would be going through, Stations of the Cross, if you will. Okay, Roman Catholic upbringing. So what I do is I use a program such as Onyx that'll let me do that from Titanium Software off in France, or and I'm a beta tester for them. The folks at MacPaw, they have Clean My Mac. One of the things it allows you to do is repair permissions. Another one that's got it is...
Okay, well, they haven't hidden it somewhere in the system that you can reach.
If you boot into Terminal, yeah. I mean, yeah, and just like, you use Pluto to find and delete any corrupted preferences. Pluto,
Okay.
sudo.
Apple has decided that the system takes care of itself well enough. Normal people don't need to do that.
Well, to really put it in its proper perspective, the new operating system coming down the pike, High Sierra, has a brand new filing system, handles this sort of stuff in a different way. So they just don't want to invest any money. It's like they're threadbare, they have like no cash. They don't want to spend any time, money, or resources on folks that want to be able to repair carpets.
We're gonna keep all those engineers working on the iCar.
I thought the iCar was,
Yeah,
out
that's
of
what I'm
here.
saying, is they have nothing else to do now, so.
They're working on something, I'm not quite sure. Okay. I have a little bit of frustration with Apple right now. I just get the feeling that maybe, just maybe, they don't have their eye on the ball. The number one thing that they push in terms of a technology to folks, okay, is iCloud services, cloud services. Okay, I'm still waiting for them to hire that VP that's going to be in charge of all the cloud services, because it's up to about 50 of them now. So Eddie Q's got some of them, Schiller's got some of them, Federer's got some of them. They're all in different parts of the company. But you don't have anybody who's in charge of all of it, that can make sure that the stuff works the way it's supposed to, and that everything is seamless and it just works. All that stuff that Steve Jobs told us about mobile me, and then it didn't happen. So I sort of understand that, they're more concerned about getting the Steve Jobs Theater finished their, I don't know, how much is that building there? They built that new office with the special, they had to invent special glass technology because they wanted to have curved windows.
Yeah.
So they invented technology to be able to do that. They couldn't, it wasn't, in the bag of tricks that the window guys had. So that's just about done. They kicked the Apple Card project loose. They threw away a couple other things. So I'm hoping that once they get their campus done and all that they'll start to focus on some of the other things. But be aware that it's not just Apple. Microsoft is also doing this. Used to be on a Microsoft operating system, I could pick which updates I was going to apply. I could say no to this, I could say yes to that. Now, I can't even tell them don't update it. All of a sudden, boom, I've got, Windows 10 Creator, and I'm going like, okay. I got to figure out where they put everything again. And you have no choice about that, because they don't release an operating system. It's treated as a service that's being provided to you.
Like Big Brother?
Well, that's there too. It makes it much easier for them to be able to collect information, which is very valuable. Another thing that's very frustrating for me on any of the free email services, whether it's AOL, Juno, whatever, all of the ads. And then they get upset if you use a web browser that blocks all that stuff, and then your mail doesn't work because you got an ad blocker going, and you go like, wait a minute, okay. So it's all about money, power, prestige, and control. Yeah, I'm a distributed systems guy. I'm like, give me the power. Go for it.
Yeah, backing up a little bit, annualcreditreport.com is the one that the government will recommend, because that's the one that a 2000 some odd law required them to be able to do that.
And that's all one word, right? Annualcreditreport.com.
Yeah. Back to my rebooting Mini for a moment. That system was never, it was kind of my entertainment machine, an ITV recording off air, and cable before they button that up. So I never really got a backup regime going there. And it basically rebooted so often that it would crash during reboot, the disk clean, and it rebooted the disk to oblivion, basically. Corrupted it so badly. It turned out the Drive Genius folks that were in here, remember? ProSoft. I bought that suite, and I had run the disk repair on it several times successfully, but I went one step too far and corrupted, so it couldn't even recover it. But they also had a data recovery
Yeah.
tool, and that, I think, has got my files back. I'm waiting to get the machine to not trash itself anymore.
Okay.
But that was able to recover the files on the disk, even though the directories were, the file structure was
So-
corrupt.
Perhaps you
Good
understand
tools.
why, if you're doing what I call a mission-critical machine,
Yes,
your hard drive may not be inside the computer. It may be a standalone with its own power supply
Mhm.
external to the machine. So if the machine's going through some sort of yo-yo routine, you know, up and down, up and
it
down.
was just its internal Mac Mini disk.
Yeah.
But the ProSoft stuff,
Yeah, but
really
you know,
seemed to
Mac
work
Minis,
well.
they got, you know, you got lots of places where you can have an external drive on it.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
But
I was just saying I got stuff back.
always assume the hard drive will die. Always assume that something will go wrong. In the same way that we've got the automobile insurance, we've got the fire insurance. Yeah. And the problem that you get if you're technologically savvy is
You
we
make it worse.
begin to think that we actually have control over this stuff, okay? And we think that we're immune to this stuff, but we're not. We're fallible human beings that might drop dead at any moment. Okay, with that said, now that I've depressed everybody in the room, where are we at for time? Okay, we're at 10:53. We did help desk. Let's do raffle.
You promised to get back to me.
Oh, I'm sorry. We'll get back to
You're gonna hurt
George,
my feelings here.
because it's all about George, we know.
Look at your dock up there, okay?
Okay,
Suppose I want to rearrange the order of the icons on the dock.
okay,
And one time I was able to do that, but I can't remember, or I can't figure out how to do it.
okay. So George is talking about my incredibly full dock down here.
Yeah.
Okay, this is where you don't follow Bill. If you're doing your dock right, you just have the things that you always use. You don't have everything in the world down there. So the question is, how do I go about, if I've got this icon here, Etrecheck, and I want it to be over here instead, how do I move that? Okay, so step number one is, if I've got my dock on the left or the right, put it on the bottom temporarily. Okay, it's easier to move them when they're on the bottom. Next thing, don't have the program running. So we're going to go down here, and we're going to go down. Okay, so I've got my pointer on top of Etrecheck. I press on my trackpad. Notice if I try and drag it, nothing happens. If I hold down my Apple key, what they now call the command key, and I drag it,
Okay. So it's command drag.
no.
Oh.
Just hold it. It changed it. Let me see. Is it option now? Okay, it's option. You hold down your option key, drag it up out of the dock, don't let go of any buttons, and then drag it down to where you want it to be. The option key. It used to be you could just do it with the command key. Okay, so just to go through it one more time. One, make sure that you got the dock on the bottom. If you got it on the sides, put it on the bottom. Next, make sure the program isn't running. Put your pointer on it. Hold down your option key. Okay, come on. There we go. And then drag it on.
You've got a couple folders there. Can you put some of these icons in a folder some way to tidy up your,
Let me just zoom in here a little bit so you can see. There's a dividing line.
right.
Okay? These can only, this side to the left, only can have icons of programs. Okay? On this side, yeah, you can have all sorts of folders that can have aliases of programs or programs in them. But if if you get too fancy with your organization, and some computer tech is trying to figure out what you got where, they may not realize that you have the entire office suite because you moved one of them into this other folder. It's better to leave that stuff in the applications folder pretty much where it was installed. Okay? Okay, thank you. Okay. Now, the way I get around all that is I'll create a folder on my desktop, and then I'll create aliases of certain, let's say I'm doing desktop publishing. And there's a program that I use to do spell checking, and I got a program that looks at word count, and, you know, all these specialized little programs because I don't want to use Microsoft Office. It's got this stuff built in. What I'll do is I'll put aliases of all those programs in that folder on my desktop. And that way, if I click in there, it's all there, and I just turn them on, off we go. Okay? Do that one. For those of you who are running older laptops, iMacs, Mac Minis, whatever, the newer operating systems from Apple have as their basic assumption for thermal management that you're running one of the newer machines that runs cooler. Okay, so I've seen, for example, let's say you have a 2007 iMac or a 2011 iMac. It's going to run hotter in terms of internal temperatures than it would have under previous operating systems. Okay. The way to get around that is with this product, and this is a freebie. These folks, they're making it available for free. It's called Mac Fan Control. Okay. Now, what I like about this is, like, if I've got a MacBook Pro and it's got 2 fans, I can tell Mac Fan Control, I want you to watch the temperature of that optical drive. You know, the one you're using for reading, writing, and burning DVDs. And I want the other fan to watch the temperature of the heat sink. Okay? Because one's on the left and one's on the right. And don't use the settings from the operating system. I want to keep it in this temperature range. Okay. Which means that you've got control over those fans. And you're telling it not to do the energy saving thing, but rather, I don't want to cook the inside of this laptop. I want to keep the temperature under 160 degrees. I want it maybe in 120 range, whatever. And that works with iMacs, it works with Mac Minis, works with all of the different computers. And they have a legacy version for Snow Leopard. Snow Leopard. So if you're running Snow Leopard on a Mac Pro, not that any of you would have anything that old and looking at red. But it gives you some control over this. And I've started to do it with all of my customers that come in. They say, you know, it's running a little hot. It's always the wife's laptop. My wife's complaining that the laptop is too hot when it's sitting on her lap when she's in the, you know, cabana chair on the bed. Whatever. So typically what I'll do is I'll open up the machine, I'll clean out the fans, get the dust bunnies out, and then after I put everything back together, run my standard hardware test, I'll put Mac Fan Control on. Okay? So not something that you have to have on your machine, but I find it to be a good thing to have. And the website is Chrysalis ID. So it's CRYSTALIDEA.com. Okay, what I'm going to do is just real quick.
Zoom that in.
Yeah, just zoom in. Don't do that.
/max-fan-control.
Yeah.
After the comma.
There we go.
Max-fan-control.
www.CRYSTALIDEA.com.
Why do we say www all the time? Nobody types it, I don't.
Because the World Wide Web is one of 282 services that can be provided through an internet connection. And
Why type it?
You're depending on the site to have their domain set up right. Some sites you need it.
because you could have a site that's an FTP site, it could be a Gopher site, there's a whole bunch of them. Anyway, tradition. Why do we put USAF on those aircraft?
Nothing wrong with that.
Everybody knows that that must be, Why do the British insist on putting those round targets on the wings of their?
Yeah. Okay.
So anyway, I'm just sharing something that I've started to do on all of these customers' machines. I'm getting really good results from it. And the other thing, the reason I'm mentioning it to you right now is that I think these folks are getting ready to come out with a paid version. So you might want to get the free version before they come up with the paid version. Okay.
Question.
Yep.
If you need to go in and make settings with it, or do you just install it and let it do its thing? In other words, do you have to know what kind of speeds or temperatures?
It's got settings that are better than the standard Apple settings.
Yeah.
Me, I always go, no, I want to do it. I want it to look at the proximity of the heat sink, or I want it to look at how hot the hard drive is.
How do we know it?
So you can, yeah. So maybe what we'll do is maybe next month,
Yeah.
we'll do a more in-depth thing
Okay.
about that. Though I thought I might just bring up one of my toolkits. What do I carry when I go on a site visit? Crucifix, magic wand.
Yeah.
No, I do. I carry crucifix in my bag.
Chicken blood.
Yeah.
Carry it.
I hang out with religious dentists, pharmacists, and religious. Those are the people I typically hang out with. I don't know why, but it just. Okay. And so one of the people that I hang out with, he's a retired priest, and the parish that he had for many, many years decided they were going to refurb the church. So they redid the pews, and they took the old pews and they cut them up and they made them into crucifixes that they gave away to the members of the congregation. They had a few left over. They sent them to Father Frank. So I was over at Father Frank's, and he said, "Would you like a crucifix?" I said, "Why are you telling him?" I said, "Yeah, fine." He said, "For your fixer bag." I said, "Fine." He said, "Would you like another 200? And I said, "How many did they send you?" He said, 300. I said, "Oh, that many walls." Anyway. Okay, so this is a software review. So here we go. Okay, the product is called MacScan 3. And it's from a company called Secure Mac, and their website is securemac.com. It's for Mac OS 10.8 and above, so we're talking Mountain Lion and above, and it's a subscription of $50 a year. Okay. It's a, let me go back one so I can look at my notes here. The website, securemac.com. This is one of the websites that I use as a reference, think like reference work, like an encyclopedia or a dictionary, when I want to know something about malware. All of the fiddling little different types of Trojan horses, viruses, etc. They have an encyclopedic amount of information on their website about this stuff. Okay.
New message from AJ Sam Colgrove.
So, this program does three things. You can use it to scan for malware. That's the new term for bad stuff on your computer. Okay. You can use it to clean up cookies and cache files that your web browsers will create. And last but not least, they have this comprehensive database about threats to your Mac. So if you want to know about the cookie cutter virus from 1986 and all of its different variations, they would have the information about it. So the program's already installed it. At this point, we're on the home screen right here. This is where you pick and tell it what you want to do. You've got little buttons up above the top. So home screen, do I want to do this, this, or this? Malware, it'll take me to my malware choices, or I can just click here. Privacy, it'll take me to the internet clutter so I can see what the cookies are. Library is going to be taking me to where they have all of this definitive information about various viruses and how to remove them and such. Okay, real world, normal people, you don't care that it's the cookie cutter virus type A found. I mean, you don't care. You just want it gone. Over on the other side, you got a button called Quarantine. That's where, if you've run a MacScan, where it puts the bad things that it finds. So it sort of puts it, think of it like a penalty box in a hockey rink. You know, they were checking too hard in the sideboard. Hey, penalty box.
For jail.
And then there's a scheduler where you can tell it how often you want it to scan your computer. It doesn't do 24/7 scanning. It's not that kind of a program. Antivirus security programs, they tend to come in two flavors. The ones which are there doing stuff all the time. That's like you've got security guards that you've hired for your business. They're there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They're walking the hallways, they're checking the knocks, checking the locks, saying hello to the people, eating your donuts, all that good stuff. And then you've got the other type, where they only come when you call. Sort of like when you have the fire department come in for the annual inspection of your premises, you wanted to check, hey, you know, are we missing anything here? Do we need to have something? Okay. This is one of the second type. It only is doing anything when you tell it to. And then last but not least, preferences where you can set what to scan, what not to scan. Okay. So let's pretend that we told it that we wanted to do a malware scan. Then it gives us 4 different flavors of scans. I'm going to sit for just a second here. Okay, so with those 4 different flavors, you can do a smart scan where it looks in all the usual places. Think of The Usual Suspects, the movie, you know. They know where to go. They all hang out in that bar, so you go look for the bad guys at the bar. A quick scan where it just does a cursory scan of the machine. A full scan where it checks every file that's on the computer. And then last but not least, a customized scan where you say, hey, scan this hard drive, scan this flash drive, scan this SDHC chip that came out of this camera. Okay. So you've got those 4 different ways of scanning. One of the first things that I thought was a little problematic for me about the program was that when you've got it doing scanning, it can use up to 60% of the CPU cycles of the machine. Okay, so if you have anything else that you wanted to do, forget it. If you're doing a scan with this thing, you're just doing a scan. And just for reference purposes, this was on a modern Mac, quad core, and all 4 cores were going. So it wasn't just spiking up on one, it was, so it's a very, very processor intensive program, and I can't figure out what the heck it's doing with all of those CPU cycles. Okay. So let's say you've run your scan. Here it's giving you the different results. And by the way, this program was originally developed to look for rootkits and keyloggers at the time when it was first came out, which was about 10 years ago. antivirus, anti-malware programs didn't look for those types of things. They all do now. So here we've got, it's coming up with all these different things. Notice it's seeing cookies. This is a cookie that's being used by Google Chrome, and it's a tracking cookie. Okay. And then it found a whole bunch of keyloggers on this machine. I feel sorry for whoever had this machine. A keylogger is a program that records what you type and what you're doing, and then later on transmits that off to the bad guy. So like if you were putting in your password for your Merrill Lynch brokerage account, bye-bye. They got it now. Okay, so I just wanted to see what the interface is like. So this is what it's found. And down here, they've got what I like, simple interface, a clean button. So if you looked at it and you said, yeah, you click the clean button, then it does it. So it automatically got rid of the tracking cookies, all 1,487 of them, and then the malware items it put into quarantine for you to figure out what to do with later on. Okay, so in terms of its interface, nice, simple, easy to understand interface. Now, if you're doing the second major function of it, where you're doing internet cleanup, so we would have been on the home button, and that second item would have been to do internet cleanup. So they've got 3 different ways of doing it. You can do a cookie scan, a full scan, and a custom scan. So again, they're giving you choices to do things, keeping in mind 90% of the time, what do? We tell it to do just a cookie scan. So you have these little bits of program code that come into your computer from different websites. Okay, and that was always a good thing. So you log back onto Amazon, it remembers you and says, oh, did you buy that set of shoes that you were looking at? You know, that kind of stuff. That's what cookies were for. Cookies started to become problematic when you go onto a website and some other website then is putting its cookies on your computer. So that when you're just browsing the internet, all of a sudden you see all these ads for those shoes that you didn't buy. And they're coming from all these different websites that are selling those shoes. And you go like, hey, I really don't want to see that stuff. So this will let you clean that up. You can do the same thing with any modern browser by just saying clean up cookies. And you can go into your preferences on a modern browser and say, do not allow third-party websites to put cookies on. And modern web browsers also have a feature called ad block, where you can say, hey, don't show me all the ads, just show me what was from the original website. So to a certain extent, this is for someone who has absolutely no idea what's going on, and they don't want to know, they just want to, clean stuff out periodically. So let's move on to the next screen. So here we've got the results of having done a scan. And the thing, now for me, I like to know what a cookie's for. Most people would just say, just clean them out. So if I click on one of these things down here, it'll tell me more information about it. And they're very encyclopedic about that kind of information. The average person doesn't care that this cookie is used by Yahoo to, promote, to put the proper news stories on your web browser. All you care about is it hurting the computer or not? Well, no, it's just feeding you information you don't necessarily want to see. Okay, if you decide to get rid of these things, it's got the clean button. And again, this is the sort of results screen you get. See, cleaning successful, 20 items cleaned, reclaimed, 239 megabytes of disk space. Okay, so it does what it says it's going to do, but in terms of modern utility, we don't have small hard drives anymore. We don't have to constantly prune down our cache files because they're going to fill up the whole hard drive. I mean, we've got terabyte hard drives. These things are huge. They got plenty of space. Well, until we fill them up with music and movies. But for most people, there's really no reason why you have to constantly clean out your cache files and such. In fact, there's a bad side to that. If you're constantly cleaning out cache files, that means you have to reload them when you go to the Kohl's department store website or the Harbor Freight website. I do a lot of online shopping, or whatever other website you're going to. So think of it like if you were going to a newspaper website, you got to bring in the headline, their masthead and all the column stuff. It's got to bring that in every time because you keep cleaning it all out.
Part of that stuff that's really nasty.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, but the thing is, okay, so Rich Gray up front was saying, well, really nasty stuff that comes in. But if you're using a modern browser that protects you from Java exploits and other things coming in, like the Avast program, where it's a web shield. So it's telling you, yeah, these are all the cookies that want to come on, and you can tell it no, yes, whatever. You can just say, hey, just keep me protected, and it'll keep that stuff off automatically. I mean, so to that extent, well, let me just do the review summary. Pros. It's fast, easy to use. You can also remove web browser cookies with it. And it's really good at auto-identifying malware. They're very, very good. On the con side, it's an annual license. I like software that I can either buy, one purchase, boom, I got it, and then I can use it for several years.
Amen.
This subscription stuff, I don't like. Okay, that's me. Maybe that's not you. High CPU load. I turn this thing on, I have it scanning a small 3 terabyte hard drive. And I'm seeing CPU loads that would be like I'm rendering a video. Back in 1986, where it would use like 98% of the CPU. Okay, so, and I didn't feel like not reverse engineering, but I didn't feel like going in and seeing what processes were doing what. But it just gave me a feel that it was not, it was stressing the computer. The other thing is there's no web browser protection built into this. So, if you put Avast on the free version of Avast for the Mac, it's shielding your web browser. So you go to a website, they'll say, hey, this is a phishing website, and they try to put all these cookies on, and we stop them, and if you really want to infect your machine, you can override it. Okay. It also doesn't do anything about emails coming in, okay, because it's not a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week program. It only scans if you're already infected. To me, that seems backwards. I'd rather have something that's filtering out the stuff before it gets on my computer, rather than saying, oh, I invited those nasty people into my house again, they trashed the place, now I got to go clean everything up again. And then last but, well, no email protection. So anyway, the bottom line, thumbs down. It's adequate, but it's outdated technology. And I think it's expensive for what they're doing. It's too much money. To give you a further example, if you are running Mountain Lion and above, and you got an Apple Store account, you go on the Apple App Store, there's a free program called Bitdefender that does all this and does it better. There's another one called ClamXAV that does this and does it better. And if you really want to have things working properly, be properly protected, I'm assuming that you do a lot of web browsing, you're on websites that may or may not be legit. There's things like Avast and Sophos Home that are, again, free versions of their stuff for the Mac that do a much, much better job of protecting your machine. So, good program, but it's sort of like an antique. You know, they're not being proactive, they're being reactive.
Do you know what virus engine they use underneath, virus detection engine?
No. But
I was looking at Virus Total,
yeah.
and I don't see them in their list of partner websites, so just about everybody in the world is in there.
Yeah. You can have an organization, because they've been known to warn us in the past about stuff that's come down the pike. You can have an organization that is very good at identifying things, et cetera, but it doesn't mean that their product is necessarily top of the line. So there are many other products out there if you want to have a scanner for your Mac that I think do a better job. Yes?
If you have something like Norton Security, would you also recommend, say, Bitdefender as, or is
Okay.
that enough?
Norton Security is one of these 24/7.
Right.
It's protecting you all the time.
Correct.
Okay. So if you had something like Bitdefender, you would only run that if you thought there was a problem. Okay. So it'd be like you've got your personal physician with you 24 hours a day, and he or she has told you X, Y, and Z, and you go, yeah, I just want a second opinion, because I think I've got a little problem here, I haven't been quite feeling quite right, so I'll run this other program. But you don't want to have two of them that are running 24 hours a day at the same time, because then they start to compete with each other, and then, yeah, it'd be bad. It'd be like hiring Blackwater and, I think what's another, a Plum Blossom. They're both Merck outfits. You know, mercenaries for hire.
Yeah.
You'd have both of them, you know, patrolling your house to protect you. Well, if they're going to start, you know, doing the macho thing, it's like, hey, get out of my way. No, we park here, you go park in the back, that kind of stuff. So, same thing with antivirus security programs. You have one that's your 24-hour a day, and then you have another one that you only you use to scan if you think there's a problem. Prime example, at the newspaper, we had, for visitors, when they would bring stuff into the advertising department, customers and such, a Mac and a PC that would scan their flash drives, scan their floppy disks, before we would let the folks in advertising have. Okay, so that's sort of a setup, yeah, that would be good.